Hello and welcome back once again to Slice of the Outdoors. Today I thought we'd talk about power. Earlier on, when I first introduced the property, I pointed out that there were utility lines coming through the property, and I'll be able to access power from those eventually. Today I've brought up my solar panel kit.
The solar panel kit that I purchased includes two 100-watt panels. I decided to get the 2-panel kit in order to charge the battery faster. The kit also includes 2 sets of cables, one set to connect the solar panels to the charge controller and the other set to connect the battery to the charge controller. I purchased the kit in order to just charge the battery on site rather than take the battery with me and connect it to a trickle charger, which I've been doing for the last few weeks. Here I've decided to check the voltage of the battery first before hooking it to the controller. The controller does have a readout which indicates the voltage of the system. This would also include the power being generated by the solar panels also. If I were to look at the charge controller in the evening without any sun hitting the panels, I would be able to see what the current charge of the batteries are at that point. So here I'm just connecting the 2 battery leads, the negative wire and then the positive. I'm just doing a localized system before I connect it back into the RV, which I'll be doing later. I just want to make sure I have all the connections correctly installed and that the system is tested before I include the final setup. So this diagram here that I'm just showing shows the controller with the battery connected to the center 2 terminals. The solar panel is connected to the first 2. Here's the controller. So there's a positive and then a negative for the solar panels, and then a positive and negative for the batteries. There is also an output that is 12 volts that I can use to power other equipment, but I will be connecting the battery terminals directly back into the camper instead of using the load connections. So here I'm just connecting the positive and negative for the battery and going to tighten them down. So I did want to look here, 12.6, and that is what the meter was reading initially. You can also see in the front that there is an arrow from the solar panels. There's a solar panel icon, and then there's an arrow which doesn't include anything because the panels aren't connected currently. Here I'm just removing the final cardboard from the panel, and I'm going to prepare the cables to connect them into series. Additionally, I'll grab the longer cables to connect them eventually to the charge controller from these connections here. So the diagram had shown how to set up where the one cable will connect into the other cable of the other panel, and so the positive and negative leads, one positive from one panel and one negative from the second panel after it's connected will connect to the wires, or the other cables rather. This is my temporary setup. It's actually in a good spot here where it's picking up the sun for most of the day. So the sun will be hitting these panels setting like this.
The final connection will be between the solar panels and the charger. So let's see what we come up with.
This is the same type of terminal connection as the connections from the battery, so simply putting the positive and negative connections into the solar panel indicated terminals on the charge controller. Lucy seems to be very happy with the work I'm doing. So with the charge controller hooked up, the icon which indicates the solar panels are charging the battery is now flashing. I can see that we're at 14.78 maybe. The next step is to make the final RV connections.
I've placed the battery into the battery container on the front of the camper and made the final connections to the RV and to the controller. I'll put the top on here and put the controller in the side compartment in the camper next. This is the final temporary setup before I mount the panels on the roof of the RV, but the charge controller is sitting here off to the side into the storage compartment. I'll just push that in a little bit out of the way, close up that door, and I think we're going to be good for now. Well, now I have some power at the property. 200 watts of solar power energy for my camper, as well as charging my phones when they lose power after recording video. I'd like to thank you once again for watching, and until next time, take care.